Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be looking at this book, The 48 Laws of Power, by Robert Greene.
Oh, yeah.
And we know you guys are ready to really kind of get into this because you're the ones who sent it in.
Yeah, this is a popular one.
Yeah, so we're going to really look at how these power dynamics really work.
You know, from the back rooms of history
Oh, yeah.
to the boardrooms of today.
Definitely. And I know just from like the title, it's a little intimidating.
It is.
You know,
Yeah.
it sounds like a guide for like aspiring Machiavellis.
Right.
But I think like the real question is, can we apply any of these laws ethically?
Yeah.
You know? And more importantly, how are they relevant to somebody like me who just wants to navigate their own life, and their career?
Right, and do it successfully.
Yeah, exactly.
So to really answer that question,
Okay.
I think it helps to go back to where Greene started. You know, he started in these, these really lavish, intrigue-filled courts of the European aristocracy.
Oh, yeah.
And power was everything there.
It was like Game of Thrones, basically.
Exactly. It was Game of Thrones, but with like powdered wigs.
Yeah, and more subtle backstabbing, I imagine.
Way more subtle backstabbing.
Yeah.
Greene uses all these historical examples
Right.
to illustrate how these power dynamics work, right? In these kinds of environments where it's very concentrated.
Right.
But what's so fascinating is that a lot of those same dynamics, they still exist today.
Oh, totally.
They're just way more subtle.
Yeah, so even though we might not be, vying for the king's favor,
Right.
we're still, in our workplaces, in our social circles, we're navigating these power struggles all the time.
Absolutely. Think about it. I mean, office politics, even in our families, the way that, social media influencers build their followings, or even just like how we persuade a friend to see our point of view.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is all, in a way, a form of power play,
Yeah.
even if we don't really think about it consciously like that.
Right. So the game is always on.
The game is always on.
Even if the stakes aren't as high
Right.
as like life or death in the royal court.
Exactly.
So how does deception fit into all of this?
Okay, so
Because Greene really kind of emphasizes that as a skill,
he does.
which I think makes a lot of people a little uncomfortable.
I think it makes a lot of people uncomfortable when they hear that word.
Yeah.
But I think what's important to remember is that his whole approach to deception is really rooted in understanding human behavior.
Okay.
It's about really being able to recognize what motivates people, predict how they're going to act,
Right.
and then adapt your own approach based on that.
So it's almost like being a psychologist in a way.
It's like being a really good psychologist, And so it's less about intentionally being deceitful and more about just really understanding people.
And understanding why they do what they do.
Exactly.
So then you can communicate better, you can build trust, and hopefully, influence their decision.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that makes a little bit more sense.
And, this leads us to some of the individual laws in the book
Okay.
that Greene lays out. And they offer like all these very specific strategies for navigating all these really complex dynamics.
Right.
For example, one of them is Law 10. And it says, avoid miserable people.
What does that mean?
Well, Greene says that their negativity can be contagious,
Okay.
and it can drag you down and hinder your own progress.
Oh, so it's like if you're around people who are always complaining or negative?
Yes.
Okay.
That can rub off on you.
That makes sense. But how do you know, like, if someone's truly a miserable person?
Right.
Versus, just going through a tough time?
Yeah.
And how do you even navigate those relationships in a way that protects your own energy?
Right.
Without being insensitive?
You don't want to be a jerk about it.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's definitely a balance.
Yeah.
But, I think it speaks to being discerning, setting healthy boundaries. Right.
Okay.
Greene's not saying cut off everybody who's having a bad day.
Of course not.
But just be mindful of the company you keep and the potential impact it can have on you.
So it's more about like the energy that you're surrounding yourself with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And making conscious choices about who you let into your inner circle.
That makes sense.
Right. And this idea of being strategic.
Mm-hmm.
It extends to how we communicate as well.
Okay.
Another law is Law 19.
Okay.
It highlights the importance of knowing your audience before you even try to persuade them of anything.
Right.
So effective communication, isn't just about what you say, but also how you say it.
Right.
And who you're saying it to.
Yeah. I mean, that applies to so many things.
It does.
Like whether you're giving a presentation or having a tough conversation with somebody you love.
Right.
It's really about tailoring the message to the person you're speaking to.
Yeah, it's about resonating with their needs and their perspectives.
Right.
And that actually brings us to another fascinating law,
Okay.
which is Law 23, and it's all about concentrating your forces.
Ooh, what does that mean?
Well, Greene says that when you spread yourself too thin, it can lead to a lot of wasted energy and limited results.
Right, you're not really focusing on anything.
We're not focusing.
Wow.
You're a jack of all trades, master of none.
Right. So are you saying in the context of power that it's better to specialize?
Yeah.
Like become really good at one thing rather than trying to be good at everything?
He uses the example of Sung, the Chinese emperor.
Okay.
And he was really skillful at demonstrating this principle.
Okay.
He had to make a choice. Was he going to focus his efforts on winning over this one really powerful enemy? Or was he going to divide his attention among all these smaller threats?
Right.
But he chose to really focus on winning over this one powerful enemy.
Wow.
And by doing that, he was able to turn a potential rival into a really loyal follower.
Oh, so he was playing the long game.
He was playing the long game.
He was like, okay, if I just win over this one person, that's going to be much more valuable than, 5 little victories.
Exactly. And it just reinforces this idea that power isn't just about brute force. It's also about strategy, timing, and, really understanding how to leverage your strength.
I like that. Leverage your strengths.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about avoiding negativity. We talked about knowing your audience. And we talked about focusing your efforts.
Yes.
It's like we're building this foundation.
We're building a foundation.
To navigate the game of power.
Exactly. And on top of that foundation, we can start to build a power mindset.
Ooh, I like that. A power mindset.
A power mindset.
What does that even mean?
Well, one that embraces adaptability and unpredictability, like Law 48 says.
And I think that is so relevant today.
It is.
Everything's changing all the time. And if you can't adapt, you're going to get left behind.
You're going to get left behind.
Yeah.
I mean, think about all the companies that are thriving right now.
Yeah.
The ones that are really innovating.
Right.
They're constantly changing. They're not afraid to experiment, take risks, and even reinvent themselves if they need to.
They're playing jazz with the game of power.
They are.
Little improvisation.
Exactly.
You got to adapt to the rhythm, keep your opponents on their toes.
Exactly. And it just shows how important it is to be flexible, open-minded, willing to embrace the unknown.
So how do we do that in our own lives, though?
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm not running some Fortune 500 company, how do I do that?
Well, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And one that we're going to explore further as we get into more of these laws.
All right.
But I think for now, it's about challenging those assumptions we have, stepping outside of our comfort zone, and just being open to new possibilities.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right. This idea of adaptability actually reminds me of another principle that Greene talks about.
Okay.
It's the importance of self-reinvention.
Oh, okay.
And it's highlighted in Law 25.
Okay.
So it's about taking control of your own narrative and really shaping the way that other people perceive you.
So is that manipulative?
Yeah.
Are we just supposed to become chameleons and change who we are depending on who we're with?
It is a delicate balance.
Yeah.
But I think the real key here is authenticity.
Okay.
It's not about pretending to be someone you're not.
Right.
It's more about understanding your strengths and presenting them in a way that really connects with the specific people that you're with.
So it's almost like strategic self-expression.
Yeah.
It's not putting on a mask.
Exactly.
It's just kind of knowing what parts of your personality to emphasize in different situations.
And doing it in a way that feels genuine and aligns with your values.
Yeah, okay, so we talked about like adapting our mindsets and how we present ourselves. Now I want to hear more about these laws that are about communication, specifically Law 4, which really stood out to me. The power of saying less.
That's an interesting one.
It's like the opposite of what we see today.
It is.
It's like the world rewards people who are loud and always talking.
Right. But Greene says that there's power in being really deliberate with your words, letting other people fill in the gaps, creating a little bit of mystery.
Right. It's like speak softly and carry a big stick.
Exactly.
Like sometimes silence.
Silence can be deafening.
Yes. It can be way more persuasive than words.
Yeah. And it also lets other people kind of project their own interpretations onto you.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which actually makes what you do say even more impactful.
Wow. Okay, that's fascinating.
And it actually reminds me of another law, Law 9.
Okay.
And this one is all about showing. instead of tell.
Demonstration over argument.
Exactly.
Like the story with Michelangelo and the mayor of Florence. Yeah. Instead of arguing about the size of David's nose, Michelangelo was like, I'm just going to change your perspective.
Yeah, he just showed him.
Yeah.
And proved his point without even saying a word.
Right. So sometimes the best way to win an argument is to not argue at all.
Just show them.
Exactly. Show, don't tell.
Show, don't tell.
Okay. So it's almost like we're talking about mastering this subtle persuasion.
Yes.
You're not forcing your ideas on people.
Right.
You're creating an experience that allows them to kind of come to their own conclusions.
Right.
Okay. And Law 32.
Yes.
What's that about?
It says tap into people's fantasies.
Okay.
Their desires. Offer them something aspirational.
Okay.
A vision of a better reality that they can really buy into.
So it's like marketing.
It is like marketing.
It's like creating this story that people want to be a part of. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be just about selling a product.
Right.
It could be anything.
It could be about anything.
Even just personal interactions.
Yeah.
Like understanding what motivates people on a deeper level.
Appealing to their emotions.
Right. So even when you're just talking to somebody, if you can understand what it is they really want.
Right.
You can frame your request or, whatever it is that you're asking.
Right.
In a way that aligns with that.
Right.
Okay. And that brings us to Law 37.
Okay.
Which I think is really interesting.
Yes.
It's about visuals and symbols.
Yes. It's about creating this powerful visual narrative that really resonates with people on an emotional level.
Right. And that's everywhere today.
It is.
Especially social media.
Oh, yeah.
It's like everything's curated so carefully.
Yeah.
It's not just the words anymore. It's the picture.
The filter.
It's the whole aesthetic.
It all contributes to the message.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's the power of mirroring.
Right.
Which is Law 44.
Yes.
What's that about?
So it's about building rapport.
Okay.
By subtly reflecting back people's emotions, their body language, even their words.
I heard of this.
Yeah.
It's like when you subtly match someone's posture.
Yeah.
Or their tone of voice.
Exactly.
It can feel a little manipulative when you say it out loud.
It can.
But I can see how it can help you build trust with somebody.
And I think it should be used with caution, with genuine empathy. But when it's done well, it creates this unconscious rapport that makes people feel seen and understood.
Right. Okay, so we talked about mindsets and communication.
Right.
Now I'm curious about these laws that deal with actions and behaviors.
Like what we actually do.
Yeah.
All right, well, one of the most fundamental laws is Law 1. Never outshine the master.
Well, that's a good one.
It's timeless advice for navigating any kind of workplace.
Yeah.
Any situation where there's a hierarchy.
Right. No one likes to be shown up.
Nobody likes to be shown up.
Yeah.
Especially by someone they think is beneath them.
Right. It's like you want to be respected, but you also want to be liked.
Exactly. And then there's Law 7, which is a little more controversial.
Okay, what's that one?
Take credit for other people's work.
Oh, that's tricky.
Yeah, it's ethically a very slippery slope.
Right.
But Greene says it's a strategy that has been used throughout history by some of the most powerful and successful people.
But I guess it depends what you consider success.
It does.
Do you want to build genuine collaboration and empower the people around you?
Or are you just trying to climb the ladder at any cost?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and that actually brings us to another theme in the book.
Okay.
Calculated risk-taking.
Okay.
Like Law 17, it says. Emphasize the importance of unpredictability.
Okay.
Keep your opponents off balance by doing unexpected things.
So if you're in a competitive environment, like you're going to make a move that nobody sees coming to kind of shake things up.
Keep them guessing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a surprise attack in chess.
Exactly.
Or a really good marketing campaign.
Right.
One that no one saw coming.
And it applies to creativity, too.
Okay.
Artists and entrepreneurs who achieve success by breaking the mold.
It's like that Picasso quote.
Oh, yeah.
Every act of creation is first an act of destruction.
Exactly. You got to challenge the status quo.
Right.
You got to take risks if you want to create something new.
And if we take that idea of calculated risk-taking and combine it with decisive action, that leads to some of the more ruthless laws in the book.
It does.
Like Law 15.
Okay.
It says, crush your enemy completely.
Crush your enemy.
So they can't come back.
Yeah, don't even give them a chance to retaliate.
Wow. That's intense.
It is.
What about the danger, though, of becoming overly aggressive?
Right.
And then you make more enemies.
There's definitely a risk there.
Yeah.
But Greene says that in certain cases, leaving even a little bit of hope can backfire.
Okay.
Because they might use that as an opportunity to regroup and come back even stronger.
Right. So it's almost like you have to weigh the potential consequences.
You do.
Is it better to take the hard line? Or is it better to maybe show some mercy or forge an alliance?
Exactly. And that actually brings us to another law that kind of serves as a counterpoint to that.
Okay.
It's Law 22, the strategic surrender.
What's that?
So it's about knowing when to yield, appearing to be defeated, but only to regroup and come back stronger later.
Oh, so you're playing possum.
You're playing possum.
Exactly. It's like
use your battles wisely.
Choose your battles wisely.
Right. Sometimes it's better to step back, conserve your energy and your resources, and then come back later.
It's like that rope-a-dope tactic in boxing.
Oh, yeah.
You let your opponent tire themselves out.
Right.
And then you strike when their guard is down. Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Right. And this idea of strategic maneuvering, it connects to another law, Law 31.
Okay.
Which is about setting up choices that benefit you no matter what the other person decides.
So you're limiting their options.
You're limiting your options.
But you're making them feel like they still have a choice.
Yeah.
I mean, that is manipulative.
It is a subtle form of influence.
Yeah. But I can see how it would be useful.
It can be.
In negotiations.
In negotiations.
Or even just like everyday interactions.
Right. And I think it's important to use it ethically.
Yeah.
You know, with a genuine desire to create a win-win situation.
Of course.
And Greene gives some really good examples of how this law has been used throughout history for both good and bad.
This whole conversation is making me think about all these subtle ways that these power dynamics show up in our lives.
They're everywhere.
It's like we're always doing these intricate dances of influence.
We're all doing
whether we realize it or not.
Whether we realize it or not.
Yeah. And that's why I think understanding these laws can be really empowering.
It can be.
It's not about being manipulative.
Yeah.
It's about being more conscious and skillful when we're playing the game.
Exactly. So instead of just reacting impulsively, we can choose our actions strategically.
It's like we've had this blindfold on.
Yeah.
And now Greene's taking it off.
He's taking it off.
So we can see the whole board.
Now you can see the whole board.
And make better moves.
Make better moves.
That's like he's giving us this secret decoder ring. To understand the hidden language of power.
The hidden language of power.
With great power comes great responsibility, right?
That's right. And it leads us to one of the most important laws in the whole book.
Okay.
Law 47.
What's that?
Know when to stop.
Oh.
You know, it's a reminder that even the most brilliant victories can turn sour if you push too far.
Right. It's like quit while you're ahead.
Quit while you're ahead.
You know, sometimes walking away is the best move.
It can be.
Or resisting that temptation to just grab for more.
Especially when you're on that wave of success.
Yeah.
Power is intoxicating. It can lead to overconfidence.
Right.
And ultimately, it can be your downfall.
It's like all those stories we hear about, you know, celebrities or business leaders who have all this success.
Right.
And then they self-destruct.
They lose touch with reality.
Yeah, because they just can't stop.
It's hubris, that excessive pride, that arrogance that comes before the fall.
Yeah. So how do we avoid that?
How do we avoid that?
You know, especially when we are having success.
Okay, well, that's where some of these other cautionary laws come in.
Okay.
Like Law 18.
Okay.
That one highlights the dangers of isolation.
Okay.
Greene says that when you cut yourself off from other people, you lose access to information, to feedback, to support.
Right, you need people.
You need people.
To keep you grounded.
Keep you grounded.
Yeah.
It's like trying to rule an empire from your little tower.
From your ivory tower.
From your ivory tower.
Right, and you're isolated.
You're isolated and vulnerable. Because everyone else is out there building alliances.
Right.
Gathering intel.
Yeah. Okay, and this connects to another law, too.
It does.
Law 46.
Yes.
Which is all about envy.
Recognizing and managing envy.
Which is so hard.
It is hard.
Because I think we've all felt envy.
We all have.
And we've all had people be envious of us.
Right. And Greene says that success often breeds resentment.
Yeah.
So you have to be really aware of that potential backlash.
It can undermine relationships.
It can.
And even sabotage your own success.
Absolutely.
So what do we do?
Okay, well, Greene says instead of ignoring it or trying to suppress it, acknowledge it.
Okay.
Address it.
How?
He says celebrate your successes.
Okay.
But don't be boastful about them.
Right. Don't rub it in people's faces.
Don't rub it in.
Yeah.
And also, he says downplay your talents,
Okay.
when it's appropriate.
So it's like finding that balance
Yeah.
between confidence and humility.
Humility.
Right, because you don't want to brag about yourself.
You don't want to brag.
Yeah, you want other people to brag about you.
Let other people do the bragging for you.
That's good advice.
Right. And, this whole conversation has been so insightful.
It has.
I have to say.
I was a little skeptical going in.
I understand.
But you've really helped me see these laws in a new light.
I'm glad.
It's not just about, scheming and being ruthless.
Right.
It's about understanding human nature.
Understanding people.
Communication.
Yes.
The subtle ways that we all influence each other.
We're all influencing each other all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
So what's the takeaway here?
What's the takeaway?
Should everyone go out and start plotting world domination?
I don't think so.
No.
I think the more practical takeaway is to think about which of these laws you're already using, maybe unconsciously,
right,
and then which ones you could use consciously in your life.
Like that next negotiation?
Yes.
That difficult conversation with a colleague.
Exactly.
Or even a first date.
Or a first date.
Right. Maybe this new awareness can help.
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
And remember, you don't have to be some master manipulator to benefit from these insights.
Right.
Just being aware of the game can be so empowering.
It's like we've been given this backstage pass.
A backstage pass.
To the theater of power.
That's a great way to put it.
Now we can watch the play and really understand the characters.
Understand the motivation.
The strategies. And maybe we can even enjoy the show a little bit more.
Maybe we can.
But always remember.
Yes.
To play fair.
Play fair.
Play smart.
Play smart.
And be mindful.
Be mindful.
Of how our actions affect other people. Well, this has been great.
It has.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
My pleasure.
Into the 48 laws of power.
It's a good one.
And until next time, fellow knowledge seekers.
Yes.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries of your understanding.
Absolutely.